Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel, Lori of Lemuria. I am filming a video that I had originally filmed at the Lake Siskiyou, and I had my microphone plugged in and it didn't record the sound. So I'm back home and I wanted to redo the video because I think it's a really important message that came through to me this morning. So the last 2 days I've had this really strong emotion come up in me, and it's an emotion that has been with me for quite some time, but the last 2 days it's been really strong. And when I was driving to the lake this morning, I started talking to it, and I started really kind of pulling it out of me and beginning to ask it questions, basically asking myself questions. And I heard this story begin to form within this emotion. And I was recognizing all of these really crazy limiting beliefs that were held within this emotion. And as I was examining these stories, these beliefs that were so unconscious, I was realizing that none of them were true. And so with each new belief, with each new story, I began to kind of pull out of this emotion. I was asking myself, is this true? And every single time it was like, this is absolutely not true. In fact, not only was it not true, but the complete opposite of it was the truth. The complete opposite of what I continued to tell myself for so long was the actual truth. And so what I began to recognize and feel was that there are certain emotions that we sort of hold on to. There are emotions that we feel over and over again and that we really resonate with and are very unconscious, so what happens is when these emotions start to come up for us, they are so familiar that we don't even question them, and we hold on to them, and they really can sort of penetrate or control our day or control our hours, right? And we don't question it. We just let it come in and we attach ourselves to it. And we don't even sort of consciously recognize the stories this emotion is telling us. It's just a very unconscious belief that we are listening to and holding on to. And so when I was driving to the lake and starting to listen to these stories, I realized that the more I listened, the more I asked, okay, what other stories are in this emotion? What else have I been telling myself for so long that is not true? It started to sort of soften. The emotion began to sort of dissolve. I started lightening up. And I recognized that at the core of this emotion, at the core of these stories, was love, was self-love. How much more love can I give myself? How much more acceptance? How much more worthiness can I feel? So it was almost as if this emotion was separating me from really beginning to love myself even more. It was separating me and sort of keeping my truth, keeping my wholeness at a distance. And so I think there are emotions that there are a handful of emotions that we really resonate with. Not that we want to, but just that we do. And we hold on to them. So when we start to get triggered and that emotion comes in, we're so comfortable and familiar with it that we don't question it. We don't listen to it. We don't ask what story is connected to that, right? So for instance, if there's anger that you feel quite often, right? And you get triggered, and that the emotion that sort of comes up is anger. And so you unconsciously just feel that anger because it's so comfortable. You've had it for so long, and you almost buy into it, right? You almost unconsciously sort of allow it to attach to you and run your day. So instead of allowing that to happen, one, become aware of it, and two, begin to ask it. So what is this? What is this emotion trying to tell you? What stories are held within that anger? What stories is that anger telling you? What belief systems are connected to that emotion? So it could be a story that, I don't even know. Because I don't, anger is not one that I'm super connected to in terms of attaching to me. When I feel anger, I just let anger kind of come and then I let anger go. For me, one of the ones that really holds on to me is jealousy. And it's like, okay, so what is jealousy telling me? That I can't have what somebody else has, that I'm not worthy of it, that I'm less than. And so it's like, okay, so those are crazy stories. Those stories are not true. And I start to begin to ask myself, is that true, Lori? No. Okay, so then why are you believing it? Well, because I'm trying to what? Not allow myself to have, not allowing myself to really be who I am, hold myself back, right? So as we're going into this new moon and as we are shifting into this lighter frequency, these really strong emotions that have been with us for a very long time are getting louder and louder because they want you to listen. There are stories in there that need to be released. There are belief systems that need to be softened, that need to be let go. And when we start to do that, we begin to love ourselves more. We begin to allow ourselves to have everything that we are here to have, all the abundance, all the love, all the happiness, all the joy, dropping the struggle, dropping the fear, dropping all of that, dropping the pain. We're not here any longer to be in that space. We're not here any longer to live in that. We don't need to. And so just beginning to listen to your emotions, beginning to ask the emotions that really hold tight to you, that you really believe, or even if you don't think you believe, it's very unconscious sometimes, right? But stop yourself when you're kind of going into that spiral of certain emotions. Stop yourself and ask, what is this emotion telling me? What's the story that's coming in from this emotion? So the first thing you do is you become aware of how unconscious you are to certain very powerful emotions that attach to you. The ones that you hear over and over again, the ones that you feel over and over again. They're kind of just always around in some way, shape, or form, right? For many years. And it doesn't matter where they came from or why they're here or if it's a past life or it's trauma when you were a child. It doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter any longer. You don't need to process. You don't need to go back and relive in order to clear this. It's ridiculous. That's not how it is any longer. All you need to do is be aware of the emotion that you are unconscious of, that's constantly around, that's constantly attaching itself to you, that's constantly controlling, the way you interact, and asking it, what's the story? What are you here to tell me? What are my beliefs? What is it that this has been telling me over and over and over again? And then once those stories start to come in, ask yourself, is it true? And I guarantee you that 99.999% of the time it's not true. So then you can begin to shift. Then you begin to soften to it. Then you can begin to release it. You can actually release it. It no longer has the grip on you because you've looked at it. You've recognized it. You've taken it apart, right? So it's like we always say, like, oh, when an emotion comes in, just let it come in and let it go through you. Well, that's easy for certain emotions that we don't have a super huge charge to. That's easy for emotions that don't really impact me, like rage. I might have rage every once in a while. If rage comes in, it's like I feel the rage and it leaves. There aren't any stories attached to rage for me. Same with anger. I feel anger, anger comes, anger goes. I don't have a lot of stories that are attached to anger. Jealousy, I have tons of stories attached to jealousy. And when I feel jealousy, I really hold on and let that thing just kind of spiral me. And I've always just had this unconscious understanding that this is how I feel when jealousy comes in, right? So that feeling of jealousy can't just come in and I can't just release it, I have to look at it. I have to hear these stories. I have to understand what the beliefs, the limiting beliefs were around this emotion in order for me to really begin to break it up, to really begin to soften it. Because then what happens is when jealousy comes back in, when I start to feel that tinge of jealousy, tinge, whatever it is, when I start to feel that feeling, I'll listen to those stories and I'll know it's not true. And it won't have the same impact. It won't have the same power over me. So it can eventually move through me. It won't impact me the way it has in the past, right? It won't bring me down this rabbit hole. And so, and it's reminding me to self-love, and it's reminding me to bring myself back to me, to love myself, to remember how beautiful I am, to remember how powerful I am, to remember the light that is within me, right? And so when and if I do start to feel the jealousy again, I can remember that it is only here to show me how much more love I have for myself. And so it just doesn't have that power any longer. It doesn't have that control. It's conscious now. I hear it. I know those stories. Those aren't true. How do I know? Because I looked at them, I listened to them, and I responded back. That's not true. It's just not true. And so I offer this story and I offer this up to you guys so that you can begin to look at your emotions, the ones that are really ingrained in you, that you really attach to, that really kind of bring you down that rabbit hole. Look at them. When it starts to impact you, when you start to kind of really feel a specific emotion pretty powerfully, and it's an emotion that you always feel and it's not going away, right? Look at it and ask it to tell you what its stories are. What are the beliefs behind it? What is it here to show you? And then listen to those crazy stories that are not true and recognize how untrue they are. And then recognize also that the absolute opposite is the truth. And then watch it dissolve. Literally, just like that. Instantaneously, it starts to dissolve. It doesn't have the power over you anymore. It's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle, because shifting and allowing this stuff to kind of no longer be attached to us can be instantaneous, and it can be very graceful. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. That's what I experienced today, and I really experienced this complete lift, this complete shift, this complete sort of lightness with one of the emotions that sort of really attaches to me. And so I'm hoping that with this information, you can sort of experiment with it and you can try it out and let me know how you experience that, and if any of this rings true to you. And hopefully it does, and hopefully it will help you shift through and out some very powerful emotions that are really still kind of hanging on. And it's not to say that we aren't going to continue to feel these very powerful emotions, but the ones that have been sticking to us are not going to stick anymore. We're going to see it for what it is. And so when it comes, it can go past us easily. It can flow through and out. You can really recognize that it's not truth. It's not real, right? It doesn't need to hold a grip on to us any longer and tell us who we are and how we're supposed to feel. So I hope this was helpful. And please comment below if you do try this out and you do experiment with it. Let me know how it goes for you and if this resonates with you. And sending you guys so much love. And yeah, that is it. I will see you next time. Take care.